Alright, here we go. Let's see if we can try to keep this down to a 10-15 minute video, something like that, but I wanted to be pretty thorough in showing you how this goes together. There's not a whole lot of parts to it. It goes pretty simple. Let's get into it. We're going to start out with these Orient and Sun. Kind of new on the market. They're popping up all over the place, and I found them to be really tough hooks. Nice quality. All the eyes have a real nice form to them. So I think these guys are going to turn out to be a competitor. They are barbless, which is a big plus for a lot of people. Anyway, we got a 4.8 millimeter bead up there, and get that one locked into place. I'm going to go with a 20 thousandths lead wire. I've got this in 10, 15, 20, and 25 thousandths, but we got a fairly thick hook, a decent sized bead. So I think 20 thousandths is all we're going to need. And get the right sink rate you're looking for. Grab just a few inches here. And my quick and easy way is grab a hold of it with a old beat up pair of hackle pliers. Wrap it down tight. Press the tag in smooth. So it just kind of blends in there. Jam everything into the back side of the bead. Hackle pliers on the opposite end. The camera's a little in the way here. Let's see here. There we go. Shorten that up just a bit, not to hit the camera. Usually always do these with the camera on the back side, but had a request to show a step-by-step on how I do these particular leech patterns. So I figure the best way to do that is from my point of view and my perspective. I don't want to run this all the way back. We're going to stop. Looks like it's going to do a pretty good job for us in the length we cut. We're going to stop somewhere right over the barb, or where the barb would be, slightly behind the point. What that's going to do is leave us a little bit of room back here to tie in the tail and maintain a tapered body without having a real wide back end on it. We're going to anchor in the lead and make sure we got all of that jammed forward to tighten up that bead. Clip our tag end in the trash. I'm going to run a few wraps down into the lead. Nothing too crazy, but enough just to hold it in there. We're running a fairly small thread. I generally keep my thread as small as I possibly can. It wasn't an easy transition to make, but it's paid off with some rewards. So on this particular one, we could just go right into the Arizona semi-sealed dubbing and build our tail out of that. I've been having pretty good luck with the squirrel tail. So we're going to grab a pinch of this just to build a base. Don't need a whole lot. There we go. So now, to deal with that bundle, we're going to drop the whole thing into a hair stacker. Couple of taps. We check out those tips there with a little bit of cleanup. All the tips are nice and even. So this is just going to be the center or the core of our tail. All of my tails, I like to make them about the same length as the body. couple of loose wraps just to get it seated. Everything's looking good. Now we're going to put in 2, 3, 4 more wraps that get progressively tighter. That's going to help prevent splaying out everything. Tie all that in and encapsulate it. And just because squirrel tail can be a little bit slick, just got my cheap UV glue here. All I'm doing is just wiping the side of the bottle on there. I'm not putting a big old drop. Just want that to soak in for a second. Get everything anchored in there. 5 or 10 seconds with a UV. All right, here is the blended bundle that I've got from the last fly that I did. So here, I think we're gonna grab, let's see, let's get some of this blood leech color. All I'm gonna do is pick up about double what I've already got. Then we're just gonna blend up our own color here. We're just gonna pick and pull and reset over and over and over. That's gonna blend all these together. A couple of different directions. Stuff makes a little bit of a mess. That's all right. Tying desks aren't supposed to be clean. See all the flash this one's got? Man, I love this stuff. All right, now we're gonna start out with a much smaller pinch to get us a tail built. It's probably a little much there even. Let's start with this. I'm just gonna make a couple of pinches and realign. What we're trying to do is get all the fibers to lay down the same direction instead of every which way. So we'll just pull and reset over and over until we get something that looks like a nice tail. We'll set that right over our squirrel. About the same length. You'll see some longer ones out of the dubbing, but we'll clean those up later on. Same process, we're going to do a couple of loose wraps. And on this, we're going to make sure we get the dubbing's going to sit all the way around, kind of like this, of the squirrel tail. It's going to kind of encapsulate it. A couple of tighter wraps to lock it in. Then instead of cutting this, we're going to fold everything back. A couple of wraps over the whole kit and caboodle here. Close everything up. And for this one, let's go with some silver wire. It says French tinsel. I got no idea why. It's actually silver wire in a small diameter. And this is going to be our counter rib. This is what's going to hold the body, the dubbed body in as the fish tear it up and you make cast after cast. You can do it without the wire, but your fly won't be nearly as durable. Set that in the back. A few tough wraps, tight wraps rather. And I want to set that in right to the start of the tail. We don't want to tie in any further because we like the design of the tail, and our body is starting right over where the barb would be. So that's the right length that we're looking for. And now we can start on the body. We're going to grab a little dubbing wax. This stuff lasts absolutely forever. Doesn't take very much, and you'll get thousands and thousands and thousands of flies out of it. Knock down a little extra. And we're just going to take little pinches at a time, kind of spread it out on there, and spin it in. I spin everything the same direction. I've tried them both ways. Everything for me ends up going to my left. The closest side towards me goes to my left. I don't know why. I know there's a million different ways to do it. Everybody does it a little bit different. And then when we start wrapping, sometimes it'll start backing off and getting a little bit loose. So I'll brush it to the rear before I lay that next wrap in there. And we don't need a massive body. We're just looking for coverage on that wire, because we're going to brush all this out to get the body shape we're looking for. Grab another pinch out of our collection here. Same thing, we're going to spread it out, lay it on there. And you can leave this as loose as you want or dub it down as tight as you want. I kind of end up right in the middle because I still want to be able to brush these out. For your dry flies and things like that, I tend to dub them quite a bit tighter. And then we're just going to work our way forward. A little wax, a little dubbing. Little wax, little dubbing. Little thin spot there, we'll add a little bit more. Oh, see how we got that loose wrap in there? So we'll just come in and tighten it up a little bit, go back to wrapping. Just a touch more to close this one out. A little heavy there, spread it out. We'll re-roll it. I think that's going to do it for us. All right, so on this particular one, you can see we left a little bit of room right behind the head there. That's going to come into play here momentarily. Now we're going to take our silver wire and we're going to counter wrap. Instead of going up over the top, we're going to bring it back towards us. So we're going to do one full wrap right there at the base of the tail before we start moving. Then we're going to do that spiral wrap. 2, 3, 4.5, maybe 5. Again, we don't need a whole lot of bulk, just 4 or 5 wraps, just enough to hold that in tight so we can helicopter it off. All right, and for the gentleman that asked me to make a video on doing my leeches, this is usually where I would stop. Obviously with the dubbing pressed up against the head, and then we can just brush it all out and leave it from there and call it a day. But this one we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to add in a little bit of marabou, a marabou color. So I'm going to put a couple of half hitches right here to hold the thread in place so we can brush it out. Before we put that marabou in, let's go ahead and get the body brushed out. So this is the little commercially available piece. For a long time I just used a little chunk of Velcro, which is exactly what this is. It's just kind of neat that it has a brush on the other side that occasionally comes in handy. So we're just going to rough this up. You got to be kind of careful. You don't want to press in there too deep or get snagged into it too much, because we've got that real fine wire in there. This is a terrible time to hook onto that wire and pull it out from under the thread or even break it. And I've had some overzealous instances where I've broken that wire and just kind of have to go with it and add the fly to the box and fish it anyway. So just straight out brushing it doesn't quite work. You got to kind of press in and lift out, and you'll figure out whatever piece of Velcro you have. The hooks face one particular way or another. Works pretty good to get in there and give it a little scrub and then lift it straight out. And then as you do that, as you turn it, you want to watch and make sure your thread doesn't end up wrapped through your body, because you're going to end up breaking it. All right, once we get to here, I'm going to use the attached brush here, or you can swing it with your fingers if you don't have a brush. My old brush, before I ordered this little piece, is just a little brush, came out of a beard trimmer or something that I bought. Can't even remember. It's been years ago. Brush everything back just like that. It's that little bit of squirrel tail poking through underneath. Should be a little attention grabber. There we go. All right, next step, I think we're going to take some of this tan marabou and build a little bit of a collar with it. Let me see if I can adjust this and get just a bit better picture of what goes on here. So what I'm going to do is make a dubbing loop. No fancy tools, just using my fingers here. So it's just a couple inches of a loop here. I'm going to wrap that around, make sure it's tied in nice and tight. You can see I'm wrapping the thread around the dubbing loop because I like to close the top of it. Makes it nice and tight up there at the top. Again, there's a million ways to do it. Definitely leave a comment. Let me know if you got an easier way, a better way, a faster way. Of course, with the tools, they're a little bit faster and more convenient. Just kind of old school, like doing everything by hand, I guess. We're going to lay in our marabou. Not get too crazy with the length. And we're going to trim everything. And from here, we're just going to twist it up. Spin and spiral. Make a few wraps till there's no more feathers to wrap. Once you get the first two, you're going to end up laying over your previous ones. I like to sweep them back just a little bit. Keep them out of the way, that way you can put the next wrap in front of the previous wrap. There we go. Nice flowing spider collar, I guess. Once that gets underwater, man, it really dances around. All right, now we still have our dubbing loop here. I'm going to hold this out to the right once we get these feathers out of it. And we're going to set the bobbin up and over the top just a couple of times. Now we can trim off the excess of the dubbing loop. Let's brush that collar back and set in a little bit of a shoulder. That shoulder is going to help hold everything back. There we go. Now we're not quite done yet. So on one half of that dubbing loop, we had some little short stubs of the marabou, and you can see it's kind of crazy looking right in here, but that's all right. We're gonna tame that right now. We still have a little bit of our semi-sealed dubbing, and up here to finish this off, we really don't need much. It's going to be a lot thinner than what we wrapped on the body. kind of a sparse distribution. Should be just enough for a couple of wraps. It's a little heavy. Let's take just a bit out of that. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and tie it all in nice and tight. And a long time ago, I abandoned the whip finish. I just do a couple of half hitches. I'll add in a little dot of head cement or whatever you choose to use. I've got UV glue handy, so that's what we're going to toss on this one. Let's turn it up so we can see. And to get that precise application, I like putting it on my bodkin here. Doesn't take much, just one little dab. Just enough to lock all those threads in, lock the knots in. I'll go through and wipe the bead. Give it 5-10 seconds or so to settle in. We'll cure it. And now we're going to do just a little bit more brushing up here in the front. Pull all that out. It's not going to get all crazy like it was in the back. It's going to be just enough teased out of it to help hold that marabou back and really blend everything in. Work our way around a couple of times just to get it teased out of there. There we go. You got to be a lot more careful with a marabou than you do with a dubbing. It's not as sturdy of a material. I'll kind of brush all that back. Got some marabou tangles there. There we go. And first couple of times in the water, of course, all this dubbing is going to open up a little bit more and look even buggier than what it does now. But there's my basic leech, plus a marabou collar, plus a little collar in the front. Let's see if we can get this lined up for you. There you go. Thanks for watching.